Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Grandparent MP. He's also the presiding officer. Can you also welcome Ms. Melody Chen and Maggie Liu. Melody Chen and Maggie Liu, the host. Mark Bailey, MP, I just received an SMS message. Mark Bailey will be running late. He'll be coming very soon. Can I also have Peter Russo? Is Peter Russo MP here? No? Is Peter Russo MP here? No? Okay. Can I have Mr. Duncan Pate? Please welcome Mr. Duncan Pate, the State Member for Strathclyde. Acting Superintendent Owen Eloy. Come over here. Is Ismail Kajik here? Not yet. Okay, can we welcome Miss Na Yi, the Brisbane Director of First Media.
Thanks very much, Lewis, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of our land and thank them for their strong and continuing stewardship. They are the Yagara people, a name that means the people who say no. And I'll come back to the Yagara people later in this ceremony. This citizenship ceremony could also acknowledge, Melody and Maggie and Eddie and all of the volunteers from World Arts and our incredibly precise MC Lewis Lee. I've been to many citizenship ceremonies and I can tell you it is the most organised citizenship ceremony if you have Lewis Lee MC. But also my elected representatives, Duncan and the others who are running a little bit late, I know, and also to the Queensland Police Service, my theme state, Queen Elizabeth, who's having her 90th birthday celebrations at the moment, is there, and also the Australian coat of arms, the symbol of the Australian people. Both symbols must be there, and obviously between the two is the symbol of the Australian people, the Australian flag. Okay, so this citizenship ceremony is conducted under the authority of the Minister for Immigration and Border Protection, the Honourable Peter Dutton MP. I'd now like to read out a message from him. Australia stands proud in today's world, recognised for defending the values, rights and obligations which will stand us in good stead for as long as we embrace them. The history and culture of Australia has been forged over thousands of years, first through Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and more recently with people from the four corners of the earth. Australians are proud of having survived and thrived as a nation following the cruelty of world wars, depression, drought and flood. As a result of this rich history, today we stand with other strong democracies to help defend and protect our hard-fought freedoms. People of all backgrounds and religions strengthen our country, and only together, united, will our future be as strong as our present and past. Thank you for listening.
Today, we have 80 new candidates from 29 different countries becoming Australian citizens. We are very honored to host the citizenship ceremony under the guidance of MC Louis Lee, OAM, the community leader and also life honorary advisor, World Arts and Multicultural Incorporation. Australia is a wonderful country, rich in cultural harmony and diversity. Your Australian citizenship is about making a contribution. I cherish this great honor of being able to be part of assisting with this important step in a new life. Once again, congratulations to the candidates who will be the new Australian citizens. Thank you very much.
People who have had a tradition here that goes back more than 60,000 years, so their connection to this land is very strong. But for the last 230 odd years, we have been a very strong immigrant nation, and we are the better for it. And we welcome you to this democracy, where we see your contribution as important as anybody else's. And what we say is, we also defend your right to say whatever you want, whenever you want. That freedom, that discourse, that dynamic nature of our society makes us a stronger place. And that's something, of course, that other people in other countries are still fighting for. In fact, some people in countries you came from are still fighting for. And but as we see human history progress over the last 100 years, we see more and more societies adopting our model of inclusion, of respect for each other, of freedom, of liberty, and those countries have increasingly become the strongest countries in the world, the strongest economic countries in the world, because we respect each other. Doesn't mean we're always right, doesn't mean the government gets it all right all the time, at all. What it does mean is that we continue to evolve as a dynamic place. And I love these ceremonies. They're a great privilege for me to be involved. I hope you have a memorable day.
Well done on putting together another fantastic citizenship ceremony. I know how much work you put in to make days like this a success. So well done to Melody, Maggie and the team. Also to Robertson Gardens and Suites, thank you for providing the venue. And to Lewis Lee, Graham Perrott said one of the most precise MCs who runs a very precise ceremony. That's very true, but Graham Perrott is presiding officer, also runs a very precise operation as well, so well done to you both. Many people have said this is a memorable day for you, and when I reflect on it personally for me, my mother only a couple of years ago became an Australian citizen, so I know how memorable this day will be. Melody said there were 80 candidates, and there's a lot more than 80 people in the room here at the moment, so it's great to see that you've got so many family and friends here supporting you. As has been said by previous speakers, Queensland's a very diverse and multicultural place, and certainly on the south side of Brisbane, it's the most diverse and multicultural place. In fact, my seat of Stratton is the most diverse and multicultural seat in the state. So I welcome you, congratulations, and enjoy your day. And as I said, it'll be a very, very memorable day. And for those of you who don't remember, there's plenty of people taking photos and videos that'll help you remember in the future, if you ever forget. Thank you very much.
The preamble to the Australian Citizenship Act. This is a legal requirement for the ceremony you're in. The process for becoming an Australian citizen has changed significantly over the last 228 years. I think I've got my maths right. Since settlement of Australia. Obviously, there are Indigenous Australians and then that other process. I've worked with Lewis on a project where we, with the local RSL, the Sunnybank RSL, have a war memorial for the Chinese Australian soldiers. So these were soldiers that went off to fight in World War I and World War II, who couldn't be, in World War I they weren't Australian citizens, but they were Australian soldiers. They were able to go off and wear the Australian uniform and fight, and many die under an Australian flag. But they weren't able to be Australian citizens, and then we moved up until 1949, where they actually brought in an act that formalised that process for how people become Australian citizens, and then it changed slightly. But it's a great part of this ceremony to know that people bring their families along, because it's an important thing. But I have young children. I know what it's like. They're not as interested in what's going on out front. When my first son was born, he's 11 years old. His name is Stanley. When my first son was born, I remember being able to hold him in my hand that first day. I think I even dropped him when I was bathing him on the first day, as my wife still reminds me 11 years old. But I remember looking at him and thinking how much I loved that boy, my son. Incredible. how much I love my son. And then 4 years later, I had another son, Leo. And I think of how much I loved my son Stanley, thinking I could not possibly love anyone any more than I loved Stanley. And then Leo came along. And I loved my two boys equally. And I think that is a part of your journey. Many of you who've come from other countries, you love that country. It is a part of your being, a part of your core. But now you have the capacity and the ability to love another country. You don't have to love the other one less, because I don't love my second son less than my first. That's the beauty of Australia. You bring that love for two countries and we combine them together in this ceremony today. But, as I said, unlike the children, you have to listen to this bit. After today, you never have to listen to a politician again in Australia. That's the beauty of our healthy democracy. But today, right now, you do have to listen to this preamble to the Australian Citizenship Act. Australian citizenship represents full and formal membership of the community of the Commonwealth of Australia. And Australian citizenship is a common bond involving reciprocal rights and obligations, uniting all Australians while respecting their diversity. Persons on whom Australian citizenship is conferred enjoy these rights and undertake to accept these obligations by pledging loyalty to Australia and its people, by sharing their democratic beliefs, by respecting their rights and liberties, and by upholding and obeying the laws of Australia. As such, citizenship is both of value to the individual and to the nation. Now it is time for you to make your pledge of commitment. This will be conducted in two parts, as candidates have the choice to make pledge number one. Please stand and repeat after me. From this time forward under God.
From this time forward under God.
I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people.
I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people.
Whose democratic beliefs I share.
Whose democratic beliefs I share.
Whose rights and liberties I respect.
Whose rights and liberties I respect.
And whose laws I will uphold and obey. Thank you. Please be seated. The candidates making pledge number 2. Candidates making pledge number 2. Now, if you wish to become an Australian today, there is only 1 or 2. There is no 3. So you need to be standing now. Candidates making pledge number 2, please stand and repeat after me. From this time forward.
From this time forward.
I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people. Whose democratic beliefs I share. Whose rights and liberties I respect. And whose laws I will uphold and obey. The people who made pledge number 1, please stand for being a good Australian. 5 tips. So number 1, I ask you to find an Indigenous word wherever you end up living, the Indigenous, the traditional owners, the Indigenous, an Indigenous word that you can use with your family and your friends. Okay, so for the example, I talked about the Yadara people for where we are now. I can give you some words. Their word for a small house is a humpy biraba. Or if you've got a big house, and that won't apply to you, you can say humpy gurumba. Okay, so I'll give you those later. And if you want to say my house, you can say humpi diaba. Okay, so you can just use a word with your friends. Say, oh yeah, come into my humpi biraba. And I say, what's that? You say, oh, don't you know your that's the word for around here for a house. So we need to know we need to know that connection, wherever you come from, with the oldest civilization on the planet, the Indigenous Australians. We must have that connection to be a good Australian. Number 2 is share a meal with your neighbours. Find somewhere where either your place, their place, a local park, where you can share a meal with your neighbours, because nothing breaks down with Australia. Number 2 is share a meal with your neighbours. Find somewhere where either your place, their place, a local park, where you can share a meal with your neighbours, because nothing breaks down fear and intolerance like sharing a meal with somebody. So make sure you do that. Number 3, find a piece of Australian poetry that you can remember. It could be some of the poets from the 1800s, Henry Lawson or Banjo Patterson, or a modern poet, a modern migrant poet. There are lots of pieces of poetry that you can remember and use to tell your family and friends and neighbours. I particularly remember a little part from a poet called Adam Lindsay Gordon. He's sort of a tragic figure and perhaps not recognised for the great poet that he was, but it goes something like this: that life is merely froth and bubble, 2 things stand in stone, kindness in another's trouble and courage in your own. So that's Adam Lindsay Gordon, one Australian poet. You can find your own. Number 4, you need to find a little bit of Australian soil or Australian gum leaf or Australian tree and get the smell of it under your fingernails. Because after today, that is your soil. And could I, the people from England who became Australians this morning, we were talking about the rugby. This is important. Okay, you need to find an Australian sporting team that you can support. Now I understand if you're English, you don't want to switch rugby teams at the moment, because you've just won. So I understand that, but you need to find some Australian team. If you're mad about rugby, that's fine. You stick with the country of origin, particularly if you're from New Zealand, perhaps. But you need to find, so maybe if you're from England, you might find the Australian netball team and say, they will be my #1 team. Australia will be my #1 in netball. Okay? That's your job, to find a team that you can, an Australian team that you can make #1. And if you ever make an Australian team your 3rd choice, then you can be deported. Right, so be careful, we will be watching. All right, thank you very much. They're my 5 tips for being a good Australian. Congratulations.
I want you to check your certificate carefully. Your certificate, Australian Citizenship Certificate, is an important legal document. It is your evidence of Australian citizenship. Please ensure that your name and date of birth are correct and today's date is printed on your certificate in the bottom left-hand corner. If there are any problems, you can come and see Louis Lee OAM or representative from Department of Immigration, both protection right after the ceremony. Your certificate should be stored flat in a cool, dry location. Please do not damage your certificate by removing it. Damaged certificates will not be accepted by the Australian passport office. We also do not recommend writing your certificate, as you will need to quote the ACC number listed on the back of your certificate to apply for an Australian passport. Thank you.
Celebrate being an Australian. The words of affirmation are based on the Australian Citizenship Pledge made by candidates earlier. By participating in an affirmation ceremony, you are expressing your support for the value and the principles that underpin Australian citizenship. Everyone is welcome to join us in this affirmation ceremony. Participation is voluntary and has no legal standing. If you are not Australian citizen yet but feel a strong connection to Australia, you are welcome to participate. Just join in from the second line. Now everyone please stand and repeat after me. As an Australian citizen, I affirm my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose law I uphold and obey. Thank you. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, along with your certificate of Australian citizenship, you will receive a partially completed enrollment form. Please check the detail and correct them if necessary. Add in your occupation, postal address, your Australian driver's license number, and state and sign. Once the form has been complete, BDU, Gia John, and myself, volunteer for Australian Electoral Commission, shall collect the form from you. If you do not have an Australian driver license, please take the form to officer from Australian Electoral Commission. They will be happy to assist you. For those new citizens who are already on the electoral roll as eligible British subjects, please also sign and hand in the enrollment form so that your enrollment records will be updated for your new citizenship status. All Australian citizens need to maintain the electoral detail for their current address. Please be advised that new citizens may enroll to vote now by completing the electoral enrollment form given to you.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice.